Recorded Books and One Click Digital present Company of Heroes, A Forgotten Medal of Honor, and Bravo Company's War in Vietnam, by Eric Poole. Narrated by Chris Henry Coffey. Prologue. Around 3:45 p.m. on February 1, 2012, the telephone on Rose Sabo Brown's computer desk jangled to life. She had been expecting the call and answered quickly. After a pause, she said, "What?" Then, "Yes, I'll hold." Finally, she put her hand over the speaker and mouthed 3 words, silent yet thunderous. "It's the President." A few minutes later, President Barack Obama came on Sabo Brown's phone line and told her that Leslie H. Sabo, Jr., the husband whose battlefield death had left her a widow more than 4 decades earlier, would receive the Medal of Honor, the U.S. military's highest award for combat valor. "I couldn't believe it," Sabo Brown said. "All the emotions just came rushing in." With the president's telephone call, the United States, after nearly a half-century, completed one of its last remaining items of business from the Vietnam War. And while rewarding Sergeant Leslie Sabo for his sacrifice didn't change the war's outcome, or the vicious manner in which it rent a nation in two, it fulfilled the most sacred pledge America's servicemen and women make to one another, and that the government makes to those who wear its uniform: to never leave a fallen comrade behind. Sabo's battle-shattered body made it home within a few days of his death, but his memory and the full story of his life's final hours was left behind, ultimately for decades. A menu of false stories. He stepped on a landmine, or was shot by a sniper, or died in the explosion of an ammunition store, arose to account for Sabo's fate and his closed casket funeral. Leslie Sabo's own father and namesake died without ever knowing that his son was entitled to a place in the pantheon of his adopted nation's greatest military heroes. The Medal of Honor, paradoxically, is more often awarded in recognition of those who save the lives of their comrades than it is for the more conventional actions of combat, which would seem to repudiate the maxim of U.S. history's most famous Army General, George Patton, who said, "You don't win wars by dying for your country. You win wars by making the other bastard die for his country." In fact, the Medal of Honor in general, and the award earned by Leslie Sabo in particular, argues forcefully against Patton. You might not win wars by dying for your country, but you don't win them by making the other bastard die for his country. You win battles and wars by preventing your comrades from dying for their country. When Sabo arrived in Vietnam, he was assigned to one of the 20th century's most storied military units, 506th Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division, nicknamed the Currahees. The original Currahees were assembled in the summer of 1942 at Camp Toccoa, Georgia. More than 5,000 soldiers, in defiance of that old Army warning against volunteering for anything, signed up to be part of what was then a new experiment in American warfare: parachute infantry, a concept pioneered by Germany, the enemy they would eventually fight in the Wehrmacht's successful invasions of Poland and the Netherlands. About 1 in 3 of those volunteers were chosen to be part of what was then known as the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment. They trained the old-fashioned way, with innumerable sit-ups and push-ups, and by running up Mount Currahee, which loomed ominously over the Camp Toccoa parade ground, 3 miles up, 3 miles down. After nearly 2 years of training, the original Currahees leapt from airplanes into the Normandy region, Cotentin Peninsula, on the early morning of June 6, 1944. The carnage they faced as a beyond the tip of the spear you...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.